So now we're going to look at estimating averages from frequency tables, which is part of your Statistics 2 chapter that we would have looked at this year. So with regards the estimating averages from frequency table, we will eventually be looking at a question from the book, and that question is on page 158. So if you want to open up page 158, I'll write it down. 158. It's no hard. Okay. So before we actually look at how to answer a question by estimating averages from a frequency table, it's key to look at the title of what we're looking at and to break it in. I would break it into three different parts. So we have estimating, okay, averages, and then frequency table is another strand of mathematics. So what do they all mean? Estimating is simply a mathematical guess. Okay. There's parts of maths where we don't know the exact answer. So for example, anything with a big set of data, such as during the current COVID crisis, there is lots of numbers being thrown in everywhere, that a lot of use of statistics involve just guessing, or not just guessing, but being pretty close by using an estimate. So we would have seen estimating in primary school to one or two or three decimal places, nearest 10, nearest 100. We saw estimating to significant figures in first year. And so here we will see a type of estimating too. The second strand we're going to look at is averages. Okay, so averages, in this it involves the modal, the median, and the big one, the mean. Okay, so the modal is the most, the median is the middle, and the mean is the sum over the amount which will be an example of the average. Okay, and then the last bit we're going to look at, last part, so we've looked at estimating, we looked at what averages means, frequency table. Okay, so you would have seen frequency table. Okay, frequency table is pretty much what we're going to be looking at. Here's an example of a frequency table. Frequency table is used to put our data into categories. Okay, so put it into categories. So if you were to imagine I was to line everyone up and record their heights, okay, we could record everyone's height. There's no point doing a bar chart of everyone from like 160, 161, 162, or even breaking it down even further, 160.1, 160.2, 160.3. So an easier way would be to use what we call a frequency table. Okay, so an example of a frequency table, we will have two things. Okay, our second data is generally frequency, and then our first column would be what we're testing. So it could be your height, it could be anything. Okay, so let's say height. First, let's say 150 to 160, 160 to 170, 170 to 180, and 180 to 190. Okay, generally it would say that if it would be everything greater than 150 or less than or equal to 160. So if it was 160, it will tell you with instructions where the data would fit exactly. Okay, and then we'd have our frequency down as well. So we're not going to worry too much. I'm going to put to say between 160 and 170. Imagine if I had, let's say 10. Okay, 10 people that are a frequency between 160 and 170. So we're just going to focus on this region here. I want to look at how we estimate the averages. Okay, so to estimate the mean, we need a new thing which is called the mid-interval value. Okay, not going to be an orange, I'm going to get a darker colour. Mid-interval value. Okay, and the mid-interval value is simply, the mid-interval value is the average, okay, of the lower region and the lower bound and the higher bound of each category. So the mid-interval value here would be 167. We need to just add the two numbers divided by 2, 175, 185. So, as we said, if we had 10 people between 160 and 170, to estimate, to get the mean, we need to use a mid-interval value, and we simply multiply. So the mean is going to be your frequency. Making sure that iPad can see the screen. Frequency multiplied by your, let's call it mid-interval value, MIV. And then we divide it by the frequency. Okay. In a full exam, you would do it for each of them. We're only looking at one here. So we would have had 165 multiplied by 10. And then you divide it by 10. If you were just to focus on one region, you'd always get back to your mid-interval value. Simple fact that the two frequencies would have cancelled out. Okay, so we're going to look at page 158. I believe it's question 12, and I'm going to do it out for you now, step by step, with the thought process that is involved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you now, the page 158, question 11. Open up that page, okay, and if you were to be given a frequency table in the test, I would suggest the first thing you do is to copy it down onto the page. Okay, so there is some instructions that you will be asked to use. Okay, so we're going to go through the questions. Okay, so the first part I. Okay, I would leave a gap, 3 or 4 lines. Okay. Okay. Part I there says, what is the modal? Okay, the modal is what frequency occurred the most. So this doesn't mean the number 45, it means 45 people were called between 0 and 4, 27 people were called between 5 and 9 minutes, 17 were called between 10 and 14 minutes, and so on. So the modal, okay, a better marker. Yeah. The modal is the most, which the modal is 45 people, but the group it belongs to is 0 to 4. So your answer is not 45, which some might think, because it's the highest number, but the answer is 0 to 4. The second part of that question then asks you to find what's the greatest number of people that could have received a call more than 18, or received more than 18 calls. Okay, so greater than 18 calls. Okay, so 18 calls, people that belong, definitely this one person between 20 and 24 belongs greater than 18. These 8 people could be or could not, we're not quite sure, so we have to read the question. Be careful, it says the greatest number of people, so in theory all 8 of these people could have been more than 18 calls, so we would include both those 8 plus that one person, so your answer is 9 people. Okay. Part 3 says what is the least number of people who could have received a call, received less than 8 calls? So less than 8 calls, and least number of people. Okay, so least number of people, we would ignore the people between 5 and 9, and we would just look at the people that are definitely less than 8 calls. So it would be all the people that belong between 0 and 4, which would be 45 people. Okay. And the last step that we're going to look at is use the mid-interval values to estimate the mean number of phone calls. Give your answer correct to the nearest whole number. So we see the keyword mid-interval values. We see estimate for the mean. Okay, and we are asked to round to the whole number. So when you see the word mid-interval values, we'll go back to what we were looking at before. We need to know how to find the mid-interval values, and then we need to put it into the table to find the mean. So I would recommend that we mid-interval values. Okay, you have a brand new third column, and when you are completing a frequency table, always prepare to have a third column. You might need it, but as you can see here, the third column will help you. Okay, so from the table that we were drawing, you can see why it was important to have this table drawn into your exam. If you hadn't drawn the table, I would suggest then you would draw all 3 columns, and we find the mid. So we add 0 plus 4, it's 4 divided by 2, so halfway between them is 2, halfway between 5 and 9 is 7, halfway between 10 and 14 is 12, halfway between 15 and 19 is 17, and halfway between 20 and 24 is 22. Okay, and then what we will have is you will have to do the sum of your frequency multiplied by the mid-interval value. So it's going to be 45 multiplied by 2, let's put that in a bracket, plus 27 multiplied by 7, plus 17 by 12, plus 8 by 17, plus 1 times 22. Then we divide it by the frequency. So the frequency is our 45 plus 27 plus 17 plus 8 plus 1. You could just type into a calculator, press the equals button to get an answer. I have it here that the top there would have been 641 divided by the frequency is 98, which gives you a total of 6.54, and it keeps going. Okay, so as with all questions, we go back to the question on page 158. The question had a rounding, so it says give your answer correct to the nearest whole number. You look at the nearest whole number there, you round it up, so your answer is 7. Okay, that is estimating averages from frequency tables. And as you can see in this question, okay, and in actually past junior questions, when they do ask you to estimate the mean from a frequency table, so we'll talk about the mean, they usually do in the question have the phrase mid-interval value. So you need to know the mid-interval value, know that it's used for just the mean, okay, and how to use it, okay.